Okay, we still have people coming on, but hey, Nectar, why don't we get started?
You got it, Otto. Ready when you are.
Okay, so welcome everybody to the Chaos to Clarity webinar with Plant Vision. We do have people from around the world, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where in the world you are. Today, we have an exciting webinar planned showing you how to manage tagged assets. A few housekeeping rules. Everybody is muted, and a recording of this webinar will be sent to all who registered. So the webinar will be a quick practical walkthrough, and we'll show how teams are getting more value from their project data using a tag-based approach. Okay. Also, Nectar, if you could hit the next screen. We are, please, if you have any questions, please submit them in a Q&A. We'll address all the questions at the end of the presentation. If we have enough time, we'll answer all of them. If we don't have enough time, we will answer all the questions with a follow-up email to the ones that we don't get to during the presentation. Plant Vision works on all types of plants, whether it's pharmaceutical, pulp and paper, oil and gas, water treatment, etc. So any type of plant, Plant Vision will support. Okay, so why Plant Vision? Data silos waste hours and increase project schedules. What we found is that 14.1 hours per week per person is spent doing non-optical work. And Nectar, you can see the breakdown of that 14.1 hours. Also, waste, rework, and errors consume 10 to 20% of the total installed cost. And the breakdown of that, Nectar, you could see where that waste comes from here on the right-hand side. We could certainly, Plant Vision could address two of those items, the design-related errors and the communication and data errors. If you look at the percentage, it's 1 to 9% of TIC on the first one and 2 to 5 on the second. If I take the average of that, it comes out to 8%. That 8%, if you have a $100 million project, that's $8 million. And if you look at the total overall impact, this is money lost that delivers absolutely no value to the project. Even if Plant Vision saves 50% of that number, the 8 million, you're still saving $4 million. So it's a considerable, savings. Next. So the illusion of digital, a lot of companies, they purchase software, they input data, and then they expect transformation. And what happens is different departments purchase different software, and then they input the data. But teams still spend thousands of hours during a project manually updating drawings, documents, and spreadsheets. So basically, what you've done is you've digitized data, but you don't have a digital project. You're still hand stitching data by manually doing the updates. Okay, next. I know when I was in engineering many years ago, I worked with people whose desks looked like this, and they were what we called uniquely organized. So the person whose office it was knew where things were, but if he was out of the office for the day, nobody could find anything. So the point is that companies are actually drowning in data and they're starving for insight. So more data is really not the problem. The problem really is getting instant access to your data, current updated data. Okay, next. So is it really a data problem or an execution problem? I think it's both. The systems don't support the way work actually gets done, and that's the acceptance problem. When information lives in silos, the workflow becomes slower, riskier, more expensive, and dependent on tribal information. So you could see there, you got that bucket of water and the data's, flowing out, but it's not staying contained in one single place. So Nectar. So digital tools really can't deliver value if the underlying data foundation is fragmented. So what Plant Vision is here to provide you is a single source of truth. Okay? Nectar? Okay, so you already have the data. The problem is that it's in different silos, as you could see on the image there. It's scattered, it's disconnected, and as a result, it's hard to use. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Nectar and Rich. So Rich is is an industry consultant, and he's a specialist in implementation, having worked on many projects over his 30-plus year career. And Nectar is our CTO. And between Rich and Nectar, they'll take us through a demonstration and show us exactly the capabilities of Plant Vision. So Rich, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Otto. Welcome, everybody. So let's look at that slide right there. And what I see, that's okay, Otto, move to the next slide. Thank you, Nectar. So Nectar talked about silos. Plant Vision is built on top of Forma, Autodesk Forma, which you might still call ACC or the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So it's got all of your files are in there, and it's actually a pretty powerful repository, but it tends to be organized by file, and those files tend to have some dependency on the applications that created them, whether it's Revit or it's Plant 3D or Advanced Steel or any of the other Autodesk apps that authored information. It stores them in files, and the files are stored in the cloud server. Our approach to adding organization to that is to form a consolidated tag registry. And from that point forward, that's going to be our entry point into the system using Plant Vision, is that we're going to link everything together, not by the file that it's in, but by the asset or the tagged item that we're trying to interrogate or to take some action on. So let's start, Nectar, by just seeing what we can do to find information inside of our Forma project.
Okay, you got it, Rich. Let me present Plant Vision to everybody, and let me just select my project that we're going to be working with for this demo.
While that loads, let me mention that we're in the cloud. We're working inside of a web browser. We're working on a tool that allows us to very easily navigate all of your project information with virtually nothing except a web browser installed on your desktop. You also don't need to have any extensive CAD knowledge. So the tool we're going to show you here is certainly useful for all project participants, regardless of their CAD proficiency or the discipline, or even folks outside of your organization like the supply chain or the client. So it looks like we're into the interface now. Let's just start out by assuming that, say, we know what we're looking for. We know the tag number. We know it's an exchanger. So, I'm sure that there's thousands of tags in this project, but if we start searching based on maybe some key fields and we find the one we're looking for, if we pick the tag, let's find where that is in our 3D model. That's the first operation. So there you go. So Nectar picked an exchanger. It navigated right to it. We didn't need to know which model it was in. As you can see now, we're looking at the exchanger. It's pretty easy to see it in the context. This is an interactive 3D model. We can zoom out, we can roll around, we can get a better view of it in the 3D model. So we just found it. That was pretty easy. But let's challenge ourselves with something else. Let's pick something else. Let's say we don't know the tag number. We just want to pick something and interrogate that and see if we can find some information about it. So Nectar, pick another exchanger. Let's just
absolutely, Rich. And I just want to bring forward as well, as you're hovering, we've also introduced like a little tooltip here at the top. So anything you kind of hover over that's tagged, you'll also see the tooltip and you'll see the identifier. So here, let me pick another exchanger. Okay, Rich?
There you go. So we don't need to know what it's called, but once we pick it, we've set focus on it, and you can see that that's actually 100-A. That's exchanger 100-A in area 100. So we found information about it by just picking it in the model. Again, we didn't really need to know the tag number, but once we picked it, we do know the tag number. Plus, we've got a whole host of related documents. What if I wanted to see where that was on the P&ID, for example?
All I have to do is click on it, Rich. Here you go.
There you go. So let's do that. So what you'll see here is that by selecting something in the model, I can easily pop that up on the P&ID or a host of other drawings. As you can see, we've got relationships with a whole bunch of other documents and drawings. Could be a spec, could be a vendor document, data sheet.
Give me a second, Rich. It always happens during a demo. Eh?
I think what happens is when we're presenting, things work slower because a lot of your browser is busy talking to the server.
There
There
you
you
go.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. So it zoomed right to it, right? So it opened up the right document and zoomed right to it, and we're looking at that exchanger.
And
But let's
even though
just say
it's
that,
a
go ahead.
PNID rich, I can also click on any other exchangers and any other assets within there, and the asset hub and all the product also comes to life. So it's kind of bi-directional, right? I can go from 3D to the PNID and then the PNID back. So once I've clicked on exchanger B, my asset hub fills up again. I can click on that and it'll select that back in the model as well.
So I can go between the two documents. They're both fully indexed. Plus, it's all hinged through what's happening in that thing you're calling the asset hub here. So it reveals what the tag number is. Not that I really need to care if I'm just, pointing and clicking, but I can easily find the difference between the two of those, and I can navigate around that PNID and find other related assets and see other related documents. So finding things seems to be pretty easy there. But what if I don't know the tag number and I don't know where it is? What if I just wanted to search for something based on something that I know about it? For example, let's say I want to search for a pump. Show me something that contains the word pump.
There you go. So Rich, this search capability will search every piece of data inside of your Forma project, every file, every model, regardless of where it came from. It could be an Excel sheet, could be a PDF, it could be an image that we can run through and kind of do a character recognition on. We can get all that data out and we can help you search for it, and you can find all the information you need here. And as you see here a lot, there are quite a few different
Well, it
documents.
turns out pump wasn't that helpful. It's too
Yeah.
general. What if I search for the word multi-stage? Because I know that I only have one of those on the project. So there you go. So now I've got a document. I can reveal that and actually pop that up in the viewer. It's kind of hard to see when we're just on one screen, but there it is. Looks like a piece of vendor catalog information.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. So there's our multi-stage pump. So we can find it based on any of its properties, or even some text on one of the drawings or documents. Could be Word, could be Excel, could be anything. So finding information, I don't really care which application authors it or anything. I just find the information that I'm looking for using the tag number, using a selection in the model, a selection on a drawing, or even down to a free text search. So that's pretty much what we've accomplished here, is that we've got a single entry point into the system, which is really, it's all indexed on the tag. It's pretty easy to access all the information. So we've really kind of done away with hunting across individual files and folders and using file names or anything like that. But it's worth mentioning that we're really just looking into an Autodesk Forma instance. It's just your project. There's really no magic here. We point Plant Vision to it, and the index builds and maintains itself. So all of this search capability is overlaid on top of it without anybody having to build or maintain that index. It's self-maintaining, and it keeps all of that powerful search, find, and navigate information intact as we continue on developing the project, or even after we maybe hand it off to construction or commissioning or operations. All that indexing stays intact. Okay, so let's go to the next
Hey,
slide.
Rich,
then.
let me just say something
Yes,
real quick. Hey, for the audience, any questions you have, please, type your questions under Q&A. I just wanted to remind you. Sorry, Rich.
No problem. Let's go to the next slide.
You bet. Just Rich, while the slide is loading as well, I think I can add, you just mentioned it. Once the project's enabled for Plant Vision, we're listening to any changes that are occurring in Forma. So we keep our indexes up to date at all times. I mean, it can take seconds after the model has been pushed to Forma that we can get the latest changes. Sometimes, depending, it could be a minute or so, depending on the size of the model. But you don't have to do anything. It's not like you have to kind of manually go and re-index or do a bunch of things. The Plant Vision is sitting there listening all the time to your project. Okay. Back to you, Rich.
Okay, so we keep talking about Plant, but I want to say that it's really not married to Plant. Of course, we embrace Plant 3D, but we also integrate Revit, Civil 3D, Advanced Steel, or just regular AutoCAD files, or PDFs, or IFC, or a variety of other inputs. All of the things that can be managed in Forma. So the term Plant we're going to go fast and loose with, but actually, now that we've got this asset registry and it's at the center of Plant Vision, there's a little more we can do with it. We don't really care where information came from, because once it's in Plant Vision, they're all equal participants. So what we're going to show you now, if we could go back to that, Nectar, is how it's actually more than just a static search capability. We've actually integrated these assets, so it's the asset out view. It's connected, and it's a common environment for all of your project data to live. Right. So now let's get back to that asset hub and take a look at some of the other kinds of information that we were able to derive. So for example, from that exchanger, we can click on a variety of PDF files or Excel spreadsheets and see a lot of related documents that we can navigate right to where that field is. You know, the text field that represents the tag label, the 100E100, to just help us derive other related information about that exchanger. So Nectar, maybe give us a little tour of this asset hub, which is really kind of the center of you know, we're looking one asset at a time right now. We'll expand upon that in a minute. But right now, what we want to show you is it's really I'll share with you that exchanger was authored by Plant 3D. It was also authored by Plant P&ID, so it's on a P&ID. Related products for sure, but separate data. We've integrated all those so that all the information that was composed by both of those tools is integrated together and visible, sortable, searchable, and reportable, all from this one interface. So the asset hub is kind of how we can navigate some of that stuff. So I'm going to turn that back to you now, Nectar. Give us a little tour of this asset hub.
You got it, Rich. So any document inside of your Forma project that references this exchanger will automatically appear here in the Asset Hub. So you'll see here we have a bunch of Excel sheets, PDF documents. We can support kind of Word as well, and any images that have text, it'll automatically detect it and it'll just work and it'll appear here. The other thing you can do with Plant Vision is, even if there isn't an association, say you have a vendor manual that doesn't reference the exact tag, you can manually associate that document like I have done here, right? This is a manual association, so you can have your documents linked to your assets no matter what, right? Be available to you and to everybody on the team, so you don't have to run into that guy's office that Otto showed a few minutes ago, full of papers trying to find all the needed information. The other thing that you can do in the Asset Hub, we've added a special link to ACC or Forma issues, so we can associate an issue directly to an asset. All issues are linked. We have a link for it. There it is right there. And this field, again, is built directly into Forma. So it's not only available to the Plant Vision users, but to all the users inside of Forma. They'll be able to say, oh, this issue is regarding tag 1234, right? This is a great way to help you. And what we'll talk about in a few minutes down the path is we're also going to be introducing a product called Vision Tools, where you'll be able to action and see your Forma issues directly inside of AutoCAD, okay?
And not just AutoCAD, but any AutoCAD vertical, including
Right.
Civil 3D and Advanced Steel and Plant 3D and all that stuff. So you can interact with them in an asset-aware way, right?
Absolutely, Rich. Absolutely. Any AutoCAD vertical, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so far, what we've been looking at is kind of a relationship between the tag and the document. But what we haven't really revealed yet is that we've actually aggregated together all the properties that we know about that asset. And again, we're just picking plant objects, but we've also got a host of Revit information available in this exact same project model. Plus, we've got access to all of the what do they call them, parameters that are authored by Revit. So if you click on that exchanger, let's take a look at the properties there. There we go.
So here you go,
Now,
Rich. There are the properties view kind of, there's kind of three different, in this example, there's three different sets of properties. By default, we show you what we call our asset level properties. So we bring together the different fields from Plant 3D and from P&ID in this case, again, kind of using, there's a mapping mechanism, and you can kind of choose which ones you want to prioritize and which ones you want to take precedence. And that's what we call our asset level view. This is a nice single view of the entire asset, regardless of where it came from. The other views, Plant 3D and the P&ID views, are the raw views that you would see if you were, again, inside the desktop product and working with Plant.
You'll find that the CAD users are rather attached to the data that they authored. So we've
Exactly.
kind of coded those filters in for that stuff. But the overall asset view includes all of the plant 3D and PNID information, but it's bigger than that too. If we were reading information via, say, spreadsheet or JSON file, if we were reading other information from a construction package or from Maximo, or we had custom fields that were actually maintained in Plant Vision, we would be able to see that information here as well in an aggregated view of all properties related to that asset, regardless of where they came from. Everybody's an equal participant.
Exactly, Rich. And to kind of help segue as well, right now you're looking at the properties and the data for this one heat exchanger. Coming up right after this, we're going to show you our data manager, which will give you a tabular view of all of the data in your project as well.
Well, why don't we take that leap? Why don't we go into Data Manager and see sort of an overall view of all of our project data? Of course, we're going to have to filter it a little bit because in a project like this, there's going to be too much information for us to look at in one view.
So, Rich, if I can do just a quick explaining of
Sure.
what everybody's looking at. This is a tabular view very similar to Excel, right? On the left is what we call our views. By default, Plant Vision comes with a collection of views that kind of help you get started and to help you kind of go work the way you were used to working, right? The asset level views that you're seeing at the top left, again, this is our concept of bringing together the data from different source systems. So you choose which fields are important to you for that asset, and you can get them into these views. The CAD-based views are the views that you would be seeing if, again, you were back on your native product. That could be Revit, that could be Plant, that could be PNID. So if you're used to looking at the data manager in Plant 3D, these views would be very familiar to you, right? Rich?
Okay, so I want to point out that, if I'm a process engineer, maybe I don't want to see a CAD specific view. Maybe I want to see a little bit from 3D, a little bit from 2D, schematic versus 3D models. Plus, I want to put some heat balance information or some other things that may be coming from some other sources. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. I can make a view that goes across all the sources and just shows me my composition of information that I'm going to interact with as if it were a spreadsheet, correct?
Absolutely, Rich. So you can filter directly like you can in a spreadsheet, but we've also built a very visual query tool so that you can go in and drill down and really get to the level of detail that's important to you. And if you see up here as well, I have this filtered by only Plant 3D and 3D models. Like you said, Rich, I can remove those constraints. I can remove those filters, and I can get in one view all of my Revit data, all my plant data, all my civil data, as long, in one grid, and then I can action that from there as well.
Yeah, the database doesn't really care where it's authored. Yeah. We can present all that information together. Well, now that we've got it there, it's editable, correct? Why don't you give us a little overview of what we mean by that? So this is an editable source of information.
I'm going to edit the tag here, okay? And as you know, or as most people know, the tags in Plant 3D are aggregated, most of the time are kind of aggregated across a couple of different fields. So Plant Vision, and in this demonstration, I want to make sure everybody understands, we keep that intelligence, we bring it to the cloud, we make sure that your data stays synchronized. The same thing would have happened if it was a collection of fields from Revit. We'll know the information, we'll show it. And I'm going to show you here right now, I'm changing tag 100E100. This means that I have to change the field called area. I have to change the field called number. And Plant Vision's also alerting me to saying, hey, Nectar, there's also a relationship here with this 3D model. There's a PNID. Let's keep them in sync and let's update both, please.
Right. So they're both pointing to the one common asset.
Yeah, exactly. So Rich, you see with the change, not only did it change the tag that I changed manually, it's changing drying area, and if I scroll further down to the right, it's also, you're going to see number changed as well. But also I can show you this. The tooltip changed so that everybody has a great view of what happened, when it happened, and who made the change, right? So if you come across an asset that has a pending change, you'll see it directly in this view. Rich, if I can just quickly scroll down to our pending changes view as well. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about that for 1 second? This is a nice view where you can see all the changes that are waiting to be pushed back to Plant 3D or the desktop product that you're working with, right? And what I mean by that is you can come in here and visually inspect, making sure this is what you need, see what's coming, see what's going. And depending on the role-based permissions, so we do have a permission-based system. Based on your role, you can approve changes before they also go to plant. So not everybody may have access to edit a field, and some people can have access to edit, but then somebody has to review it and approve it before. It's really up to you how much security you want to implement into the system.
So the message we're trying to make here is we don't want to get into the minutia of it, but it's a managed repository of information. It's version controlled, and it's subject to securities that are obviously configurable. But now that we've got all that information that's behind all these assets, why don't you just briefly explain to us some of the ways that we can use reporting or data sheets or integrate with other downstream tools using this information?
You bet, Rich. You can do pretty much anything right out of this grid, but we've also added the ability to export in the grid into a Excel or CSV, and then you can make your edits directly there and import it right back, and all the changes will happen. That's one way that people have been working with for I'll say hundreds of years.
That's great if you've got somebody offline that you want to get some contributions from.
Exactly. We also have a bulk edit feature, so you can bulk edit a collection of rows if that's what you need to do. So we want to help you with the productivity tools. But the other
that's
thing
like adding a manufacturer to a selection of valves, for example, something like that. Okay.
Exactly, Rich. But the other thing we can do at every view level, you can configure different report templates. Okay, you can create a data sheet template and a report for each view, and that also includes kind of your custom views, right? So you can make your own set of reports as well. Now, we do ship some reports with PlantVision, but we can also help you kind of make your reports as well. We have an Excel add-in where you can kind of pick your fields and you can generate your reports via Excel, and I'll show you what that looks like. Let's say I want a report of everything I'm looking at right now. All I have to do here is hit the create report button. It asks me for some confirmation, and the way it goes, it's going to go in the background. It's going to generate that report for me, and it's going to alert me when it's ready. Okay, here it is. Let me click the button and I'll show everybody.
There you go, equipment report. Now
Exactly.
that report could incorporate information from the P&ID, like design conditions. Could also integrate spatial and 3D information, like maybe the insert coordinate from the model. It can be derived from all the sources to generate this report, correct?
Exactly, Rich. Absolutely
Okay.
right. The other type of report we can create are data sheets. So let's say I want to create a data sheet for my favorite exchangers here. I can select these 4 and run the export again. Data sheets are a little bit different. We have some additional options, okay? So the first one is very similar to what you just saw with reports, where we could just download the package. That'll be, here's a zip file that comes local. I can open it, view it. That's that single snapshot of time type view. The second option is the save to Autodesk Forma. So I want to take that document, check it into Forma so that it's available to everybody else. The third one is also very interesting because we take documents who were just snapshots and now we make them kind of real time. So we call it auto update the data sheet. So if a change occurs inside of PlantVision, or even if a change occurs via Forma, somebody checks out the document in Forma, makes a change, checks it back into Forma, PlantVision will detect it, recognize that there was a change, and create a change like I just did manually on screen for all the users, okay? So you'll be able to see the changes and the documents and your data stay up to date and real time all the time.
So basically, Nectar, let's say I've got a whole bunch of data sheets. I can send those off to the supplier, have them give me his weights and dimensions for a specific item that he's planning to associate, plus his model number. And when we receive that back into Forma, we'll process that and it'll be reflected in this data and then available for anybody in PlantVision to see all those new values, version controlled, so I can see the audit trail about when that new change hit, correct?
Exactly, Rich. That's exactly right.
So I think we've kind of done this in great detail, but maybe it's time to summarize before we move forward. So what we've really done is we've connected all this information. So instead of us just having a bunch of files that we can search, we actually have behind it a powerful set of asset knowledge that we can actually act on and integrate with other systems upstream and downstream, like our supply chain. So that let's go back to I don't know that we need to go back to the next slide. Yeah, we do. Let's go to the next slide real quick, and we'll introduce this. So now that we can find information, and we've got a connected source of truth, let's see how we can use this tool to actually make our data valuable, to trust the information. So what we're going to do is now we're going to show you how we can identify problems, review them in the full context that we've developed using Plant Vision, and then actually put it into action by leveraging some of the tools within our interface to actually get real work done. So what we're going to show you now looks a lot like a QA process integrated into the tool. So back to you, Nectar.
Thank you, Rich. If I can just segue for a quick second, and we just showed a lot of changes, and we all know that plant projects or any Forma projects, sorry, are not static. There's a lot of changes that happen throughout the day. One of the things that you'll see in Plant Vision as well is a full audit. We keep what we call an asset audit of all changes at the asset level, and what I mean by that is during the extraction, I know the data that came in. This is what the data looked like when it came in. This is what the data looked like, if somebody else, the next edit happened inside of Forma. And then once you see here, look, these fields were changed inside of Plant Vision. It went from this value to this value by Nectar on this date and this time, right? All you need to trust, and that trust level is here. If you want to see what happened, who made a change, when the change was made, it's always available to you, okay?
It's change managed. It's a change managed repository of information.
Now, Rich, let me open up our validation hub as well.
There you go. Very good.
Validation hub gives you a collection of different views on how to make sure that your data is accurate, your data is up to date, and your data is what you want it to be. This first view kind of just gives you a dashboard of things that you might want to look at. I'll click on one of the card files, for example. If you look at, and we all know, and we're using Plant today as our example, even though similar fields exist in the 3D model and they exist in the P&ID, they don't always have the same value. So we're trying to put together here a nice way to say, how are you going to visualize that information, and how are you going to action it? So if you look at here, I opened up this control valve. In one of the fields, the manufacturer value was empty. In the other field, it was set to the value 3. It brought it to my attention as a conflict. And again, I have the ability immediately here to resolve it, which means kind of make them all the same value, depending on which was the priority. So it'll probably just make it the value 3. I can override it. I can set the value right here again, and it'll become a pending change, waiting for approval or waiting for set back to Plant Vision. I can't ignore it. I say, I'll deal with this later. I'll make sure somebody else looks at it. And again, I can create an issue in Forma. Somebody else, please take a look at this. Please help us get this resolved, okay?
So Nectar, please confirm, if I did resolve it, the change is also tracked, just like all the other changes. So that shows up in that change log that you showed us.
Absolutely.
Correct?
It'll appear as a different color in the data manager if you hover over it. It'll also appear in the audit trail immediately as a change that's been pending.
Yep. Okay.
Let me just quickly show some other tools as well. We call unassigned tags. Any tag in Plant 3D that has a question mark in it is it's not finished. It's got some work to do, right? So we put together this little workflow to help you kind of find those tags and to help you resolve them. And let me show you what I mean by that. We first start you at the model level, so we show you all the tags that need some help at that model level. If I click on the tag, again, it's going to open it in view for me, making sure I get the right view of what I'm seeing for that tag. Since I opened the tag in the 3D model, it opened it up for me again in the viewer, and it's now presenting to me a couple of different lists. List 1 is, and Rich, we didn't talk about this yet. With Plant Vision, you can import a tag registry. if you're starting from scratch, or if you have a collection of tags of pre-assigned values that you know you're going to use in your project, you can import those via CSV or via Excel. And those are available here if they're not used yet, right? So I can always assign some of this information. The other set, since I'm looking at a 3D model, it's also presenting to me, says, hey, Nectar, here are some P&IDs that haven't been used, so they don't exist in 3D. Maybe the value you're looking for is there. So we're just trying to help kind of find the right asset if we can, right? So here I see there's a 100E100C without the question mark. I can click on that. I can assume that's the right value. I'm presented with this nice dialogue that says, hey, these are the changes you're about to make, and here's some additional data that's available from the P&ID. We can bring that across to the 3D model for you as well.
So we've been pretty detailed in how this works, Nectar, but basically what you did was you found a tag number that had some variables in it with a question mark. You know, we're focused on Plant 3D because it tends to make those, but if we had, for example, brought in the spreadsheet with question marks, it would have offered the same behavior. It's pretty cool that what you just showed us too is that in the beginning of a project, when we start a job, we don't have to look at an empty sheet of paper. We can bring in legacy information, maybe that came from a feat study, one of the FELS 1 or 2 phases or some design criteria, and pre-populate those tags so that as early documents are created, they're automatically indexed, maybe even before Plant 3D or Revit authors any tags that are useful from the CAD product, right?
You bet. Absolutely, Rich. Rich, let me just show you a couple more of these. I'd like to also present the asset audit, and the asset audit is a nice way to just make sure you're looking at the data as it is in your project, and it's consistent across all the different platforms. And again, since we're focusing on Plant 3D in this webinar, the asset audit is showing you 3 different key cards at the top, matched being assets that exist in both 3D and P&ID. P&ID only are tags that are only in the P&ID, and Plant 3D only as well. So you can quickly inspect, see if you notice any discrepancies, see if there's something you need to action. And again, right away, you can also create an issue from anywhere in the system to help you kind of get this thing resolved if you find a problem.
You can assign work from inside of this completions view.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's a good checkers task.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I think we're running a little light on time, Nectar. Maybe we can skip right to the pipeline view if you could.
That's what I was going to do. I was looking at the clock as well. So a line validation is something that we've also been talking about, and people have been asking us for. Here I have a list of all the different lines in my project, and if I click on one, it's going to do its darndest, find where it lives again in the model and in the P&ID, and it's going to do a sequential validation of the line. And that really means is, hey, not only does the line exist in 3D and P&ID, but are all the pieces or all the pieces of equipment, all the components in the right place? So we can check, you can visually inspect quickly. You can also kind of run a walkthrough and say, hey, where are we here? Is it in line? And you can see kind of it's animating the valve, and then it goes back to the piece of pipe, then it animates the next valve. So you're 100% sure that the equipment is in the right place, the tags are correct and in sequence. Okay, you can do this at like we just did at the 1 line level, or you can just go ahead and click, and it'll create a nice big exception report for you as well.
Hey, Nectar, I don't know if I can just pause for a second. What you just showed us, we used to call a P&ID yellow off, and I've personally spent days, weeks, and months doing P&ID yellow offs to validate that the drawings or models are in the same order and the same set of components as the P&ID. It's a massive task, and you just showed us an automation of that. That's really what this is.
So thank you, Richard. I'm glad we could save some time. Yeah.
So really what we're talking about is really data quality, and an easy way to find inconsistencies, either fix them in line or assign them to someone to fix. And as we already talked about, what a great opportunity that would be if you had issues available right inside of your working environment as a Plant 3D or a Revit or a Civil 3D or whatever, any kind of user to actually see your tasks in the full context of an asset we'll talk about that later. So that's really what we've presented here. I think, unless you have something else to comment about, Nectar, I think we've made our case for trusted data. And back to you, Otto.
Okay, thank you. In summary, what I'd like to say is that, the goal of Planet Vision is to get the right data to the right person at the right time. And if what we presented to you today is relevant to your workflows, we'd be happy to, have a discussion and walk you through your projects to see how Planet Vision, could be implemented. Again, maybe you'll rethink how your data flows across people, technology, and processes to gain a competitive as well as a measurable edge. And if you transform your project data into an actionable insight, in other words, connect all the data silos, it will give you the ability to make better data-driven decisions and impact your bottom line. And you could start impacting your bottom line today by contacting us. And like I said, we'd be happy to have a discussion and, walk you through how Planet Vision could be applied to your project. Okay, Nectar, next. Okay, so the real cost of status quo, there is a cost for doing absolutely nothing. The hidden cost really is wasted man hours, project overruns, slower decision making. You saw the guy's office with the data all over the place, finding it. So decisions are a little bit slower. Also, safety risk, and there's also avoidable downtime by having instant access to that data. So in essence, really, it isn't a technology issue. It's an information flow issue. And if your information is flowing smoothly, your project is flowing smoothly. Nectar? So one more thing before we get to the questions. I want to let you all know that we're planning, we're actually hosting another webinar on June 10th, and that's where we'll be unveiling the new suite of software, which is the Vision tools. And Rich already alluded to the Vision Issue Manager, which is an extension of Forma Issues for AutoCAD. And anyone who registers and attends will get a free Vision Issue Manager for 12 months. So we will be sending out the registration link with the recording summary. So please register and join our webinar on June 10th. Now let's get to the questions. Denny has been tracking the questions, and Rich also. So let's get to the questions. If we can't answer all your questions before the end of the time is up, again, we'll respond with a written email. So we want to be respectful of the time. So, okay, let's get to the questions.
I do see somebody has their hand up.
Okay.
Bill, if you can type the question in the Q&A, if that's okay. I'm not sure if we can just turn on the microphone. Should I try to do that, Otto?
If you can, yeah. If you could turn.
Let me see. Let me see if I can do that. No, I would.
It looks like you have to unmute everyone.
Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can do that. Hello, Bill. Can you hear us?
It looks you're muted, Bill. So if you just turn on your mic.
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. I just couldn't chat. I couldn't enter anything in the chat box, so that's why you can't see a question from me. It's got a big X up there. It says chat is turned off.
Oh, that's right. There's a QA button right next to it. You can use that one as well. But no worries. Ask your question.
Yeah. So the question I had was about other. Most of these companies, these big plants, owner operators have SAP systems. Can we integrate these sort of works orders for maintenance and stuff that comes from SAP? Can we integrate that data, and how's the management between the two, Planet Vision and SAP?
Rich, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'd love to. So SAP is mostly a ERP system, accounting and things like that. But if you're using it to manage work orders, what we can do is it's going to be an ETL solution. So that means extract, transform, and load. So we could seed the SAP from, say, project turnover by generating a view with the properties that we want, which basically becomes sort of our map. And then we can output that either by CSV or JSON file, as kind of an XML format, and hand that off to SAP. If we get back something, as long as it has has data that looks like it's a tag, we would register anything that we come back, like work order numbers or status, or maybe some breakdown of of work orders or things like that, of code of accounts, that sort of thing. We can read all that and register that against the asset and make that visible in Plant Vision, or even push it up to CAD tools so that it's available in Revit or in Plant 3D. If there's a deeper integration, we'd have to give that some thought about how it controlled behavior. I don't think that SAP would do something like manipulate graphics, for example, but all that work order information is a full participant in the system. If we read something, as long as we can tie it to the asset, which SAP is actually pretty good at.
And Rich, we
Did I
can
answer
also
your
do
question?
kind of like those hyperlinks that we've done before for some other accounts, right? Where we can provide a
that's
link
right.
directly to an asset in SAP, and then SAP have a link to Plant Vision so that you can see the data in both systems pretty quickly.
Right. So we can generate a UNC coding.
Yeah.
So maybe you can explain it in what we were talking about there, Nectar, where we've got a link that would take you right back to the Plant Vision.
Exactly. So we can create like what we call a deep link that'll open up Plant Vision, bring you directly to that asset, open up the data manager, show you that row, whatever's interested at the SAP level, so that you can get to that spot you need in Plant Vision. And we can do the same thing in Plant Vision as well. We can have an SAP link directly in our properties palette that you just saw, where you can say, here, you want to see some of the additional SAP data, click this link and it's going to bring you right to SAP. Open up that palette, open up that piece of equipment and show you the data.
Right. We've leveraged that to integrate with other systems too.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Hey, Bill, thanks for your question, but in the interest of everybody trying to get to other questions, let's move on to other questions.
Yeah, you bet.
If anybody has
thanks,
questions, thanks, Bill, for your question. If anybody has any other questions, please put them in the chat. Like I said, all will be answered. They may not get answered in today's session, but we will follow up via email. So, Denny, I know you've been
Denny, can you
tracking
be the
questions.
steward?
So
Sure.
let's go through some of the questions that we got.
Okay, what about PIDs that are created in AutoCAD, but not in AutoCAD PID?
You want to handle that one, Nectar?
So if the AutoCAD file, has the label that shows the PID value, we're going to extract that information. We're going to make it available for you, and we're going to index that. So as soon as it doesn't matter if it came from, an intelligent PID or a non-intelligent, as long as that label is there that says 100P100 or 100E100, we're going to take that and we're going to index that as well. And that's the same thing will apply to, PDF documents, images. We have tools that'll kind of scrape the image and find that reference as well. So you'll see all of the relationships in the asset hub, regardless of where they came from.
It's worth noting that you're not going to get any process information from the P&ID database. So that may come in from a spreadsheet or something to be a full participant. But, if you need that information, you need another way to enter it into the system. We've got multiple options for that, though, right?
Yeah, that's right. And Rich, again, we didn't talk much about it here today, but we do have the ability to create custom fields. So even if you look back at Bill's question, you can create fields directly inside of Plant Vision and assign them to your asset, so that all of the content is available. Even if there was some non-intelligent PID that you want to add to the smart 3D model, you can start adding additional fields in the 3D side as well, so that you can have that full data set that you need.
I mean,
Okay,
that can be expanded to be stuff like it could be a web location, a web link to a camera or a level controller or a
Exactly.
position of a valve, whatever
Okay,
you want to put in that data.
just in the interest of keeping things going, let's get to the next question. And anybody who asked a question that has specific requirements, please contact us. We'd be happy to address that. So, Denny, next question.
Can I manage my project's cloud-based data inside my company's VPN? Did you get that?
Yeah. I usually answer this one with saying this, security is always security, and it's there for a reason. But we make sure that we have all of the tools, and we can tunnel through VPN in any way so that you can access your data securely and through the VPN tunnel. in any way you want. Our main product is a federated database, so all of the data is kind of shared in one database. But for those accounts that have some stringent database requirements or some storage requirements, we do offer, and we can have the conversation about having your own and hosting your own private database so that your data is in your spot only.
Thank you.
It's worth noting that we're built on top of Forma, which Forma is in the cloud. You can't run Forma in your own database. It has to run in the cloud.
Next question.
Yeah, Revit doesn't use tags, so how do you find assets in Revit?
Actually, it does. Revit does use tags. It doesn't call them tags, but every item, doors, windows, fixtures, all carry an identifier, and that becomes the tag. I don't know if you want to demo that, Nectar, but we can give you some screenshots to show you how you can reference particular items within Revit and navigate to them on the screen.
Revit definitely has, Denny, an ID that comes part of every element. But what we've also seen in industry is that once you get to equipment or assets, most people create a property inside of their family, and they use that as their tag. And in Plant Vision, we have a way where during the project setup, you could say, okay, inside Revit, this is where I'm keeping my tags. And that's pretty much all you have to do. It's a one-time click to say my tag is here, for this family. It'll index it, and then all that asset information will appear in your asset list and in your asset registry.
Yeah, and quite honestly, we do that because some clients will use Plant 3D for the piping, and they'll use Revit for structural.
Yep.
Okay.
What file and application formats can it read?
Pretty much everything that's available in Forma is available in Plant Vision. Personally, we've been working a lot with Revit, Plant 3D, P&ID, Advanced Steel, Navisworks, IFC. We also interact a lot with Word documents, PDF, Excel sheets, and any and all the image formats that go with it. Right.
I think you kind of already answered this one. How does it recognize assets in PDF?
Rich, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so for PDFs, we just do a full text scrape. So any visible text on a PDF is analyzed against our asset registry. We don't read properties so much from the PDFs, but we'll recognize the tag string and make a relationship between the asset and that particular PDF document. We also retain its location so that when we open up that PDF, we have the ability to narrow down on where that exists inside of the PDF file. So if it's 17 pages, we can go to right that section of the spec that references a particular asset.
You showed the data sheets are dynamic. When they're returned, does it revision them?
The revision control of the actual sheet is a Forma function. You'll always see kind of the version number of the updated sheet in Forma. Inside of Plant Vision, you'll also see that in the revision history, the audit, so that you always know exactly which one you're looking at and making sure you're dealing with the right document at the right time.
That's at the document level, but at the asset, at the property level, when we derive changes that came from an edit of a data sheet, we also track the changes to each property, and those become as if you had changed them manually in our data manager. It's exactly. It's the same process, and it's audit trailed.
Okay, Denny.
Last one.
Continue.
How secure is the software? Can any willy-nilly simply edit the data, potentially corrupting a project?
Rich?
Okay, I'm going to take that one. Out of the box, it supports at a minimum the Plant 3D field security. So, but we also give you a configurable set of options to apply role-based security, and in the most secure environments, even an authorization workflow, which means that even people who can edit can only propose changes, and an approved authority would have to review and accept those changes before they'd even be acknowledged to the user interface. So they're pending changes until they're approved. So that's the level of security that you can configure. Obviously, the way that we deliver the the product is just so that as if you're using Plant 3D, it has data security. We apply that by default. You can apply other role-based securities, locks, read writes, that sort of stuff as configuration, or you can apply a workflow-based approval process, which again is a configuration test. So you can lock it down if you want, but out of the box, it just supports the Plant 3D security if you sync it with Plant 3D. Anything to add to that, Nectar?
No, that was perfect, Rich.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we're running on time. You got 2
Yeah.
minutes, Otto.
Okay. I just want to say one more time, if anybody has any other questions, please put them in the Q&A chat, and we will respond with a written follow-up. So I want to thank you all for your time today. You'll notice the QR codes, the LinkedIn and the YouTube. In the middle, there's a QR code. It'll take you to our website. And again, I just want to say that we will, the recording will be sent to everybody who registered. We'll also include with that recording the registration link for the Vision Tools webinar on June 10th. So again, thank you for your time. And if you're interested in setting up a further meeting to discuss workflow or interested in a demo, please contact us. Thank you for your time.